to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really interested in the Krays, check out our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London. A direct link for the group is in the YouTube description section. We're a friendly and moderated group, which has been running since January 2018. Come and give us a try sometime.
Welcome back again. Ronnie wasn't in the best of moods. He had just had a big argument with Reggie, with Francis present. He had also now fallen out with the West End and had located himself in an old caravan on a bomb site near Valence Road. He still drew money from the barn, but rarely went there or bothered with its business. Suddenly, he had other interests. One day it was a treasure hunt to the Congo. He had heard a rumor of several $1 million worth of treasure buried by mercenaries in the jungle to the south of Brazzaville, and for a week or two talked of nothing else. Then he planned an English branch of Murder Incorporated. He thought of starting a crack regiment of London tearaways, equipping it at his own expense, and personally leading it into action on behalf of a new African state. A religious mood followed. He announced that he was sick of possessions and pain and hurting people, and was leaving any day to work in a leper colony. He could believe anything according to his mood. The visits to the Lady Clairvoyant increased as he relied on her crystal ball for advice. His spirit guide was looking after him, and she confirmed that he was the reincarnation of Attila the Hun and a samurai warrior. He would achieve greatness through violence and then die young. After a few weeks in his caravan, he moved into Cedra Court, a block of 30-ish luxury flats in Walthamstow, installing himself with a haphazard splendor which would have surprised his new middle-class neighbors. The decor was Cockney Moroccan: rugs, leather craft, silk hangings, brass trays, which had all been purchased on a recent visit to North Africa. Some of the rooms were without curtains or carpets, but in the living room there was a large screen television, several big bright flowered china vases, gilt mirrors, a yard-long plaster figure of a recumbent Alsatian dog, and an oil painting of a naked boy in a Victorian gold frame. "I feel happy," he told people. "Now I've got a place of my own." But the soft life was not for him. "I've got to be someone, do something. Here am I, nearly 30 and going to die young." Because of this, he had to hurry if he was to fulfill himself. He began building up another army in the East End. He could have had the pick of the top London villains, but he chose carefully. This time he wanted men dependent on him, men he could dominate. He already had a great range of contacts, useful people he could count on to be with him, out of fear or obligation or self-interest in an emergency. If it was necessary, I could have 200 armed men in an hour anywhere in London. Previously, the twins' closest followers had been Cockneys. Most of their new men came from outside London. Ian Barry and Scotch Jack Dixon were former Glasgow safe blowers who learned to fight with the gangs of the Gorbals. 18 stone, Big Pat Connolly, already on the firm, was another Scot. Ronnie liked outsiders without London loyalties. For some time, no one could be sure what new men were in the firm. Ronnie was careful to find them legitimate employment. Some were installed as managers of East End drinking clubs and spielers. Others were moved around as strong-arm men in West End clubs the twins protected. He fixed up one key man as sales representative with a big London engineering company. The managing director had been under obligation to Ronnie from the earliest days of the barn. While Ronnie organized his army, Reggie was busy building up protection among the freshly legalized West End gambling clubs. Thanks to his efforts, the twins' take more than doubled from this source in 1962. The new casinos, with their high profits and new middle-class clientele, were far more vulnerable than the illicit gambling clubs of the past. Even the suggestion of police interest in a club could scare off the new-style customers. Club owners seemed prepared for peace at any price. Even so, there was still no need for him to be involved in too much violence. With Ronnie in the background, the Kray name was quite enough. Clients began to come to him. Reggie compared himself with other experts whom clubs required, lawyers or caterers or public relations firms. He was efficient, and for what he had to offer, no one could call his price excessive. He was the best around. A new club opening in Shepherd's Market felt it was wise to insure against trouble from the start, buying the protection of the Kray name for £150 a week. More followed, 2 in Knightsbridge, 3 in Chelsea, several in Mayfair. Reggie devised a tariff based on the club's profits. It was an inclusive charge. One night, 2 young men threatened to bomb a club near Grosvenor Square. The manager wanted to keep the police out and asked Reggie's help. Next morning, one of the men telephoned the club apologizing, and another £150 a week began to flow into the Kray funds. Reggie was smart enough to see that foreign interests were becoming interested in London gambling. He had heard rumors that the American mafia, anxious to diversify investments, was trying to buy into several of the smartest Mayfair clubs. The French and Canadians were also busy. Reggie made sure that they contacted him early in negotiations. All of these foreigners took it for granted that the conventions of smoothly organized protection on the American pattern operated in London, an assumption he was willing to go along with. Reggie Kray's love for Frances changed with success. She was not quite his Cinderella anymore, but an important part of the business. The gangster's girl, taken for granted by the firm. Her looks and youth went well with Reggie Kray, the businessman around the West End. He bought her clothes, jewelry, a gold necklace, and liked to feel she was a credit to him. Ronnie became almost polite towards her. She was the one who had the doubts, as the rich, claustrophobic gangster's world closed in on her. The large men and large cars started to oppress her. She was becoming bored. Sometimes Reggie took her for a weekend by the sea. Here, they would still enjoy themselves. But back in London, he became impossible, especially when he drank. She tried to leave him several times, but soon found that there were not many boys willing to risk being seen with Reg Kray's girlfriend, especially as he was still set on marrying her. By this time, Ronnie was ready for his greatest coup. He had the firm assembled and had worked out his objectives. During his period at Esmeralda's barn, he had learned one important lesson, that Mayfair was not only richer, but more vulnerable than Mile End. The sort of crime that he had carried on in Whitechapel would work just as well in the swinging London of the 60s. He would use the methods of old-style Cockney villainy to blackmail, trick, and terrify his way into big business, smart society, credit dealing, and large-scale fraud. He had considerable resources. There was the old myth of the twins' immunity from the law, and the carefully spread rumor that they had so many senior policemen bribed or blackmailed that any information offered to Scotland Yard about them came back to them. There was the code of silence, the assumption that it was unwise to talk about the twins because they always knew who had gone against them. There was the jail network bringing them information from the prisons and ensuring that while their associates were away, they would be looked after and their enemies discreetly dealt with. And there were the link-ups and payoffs with a range of criminal allies throughout London, the Colonel's politics of crime. But Ronnie had been picking up fresh ideas about crime and violence. One of the few books he read at this time was Mein Kampf. Much of it bored him, but he understood the way Hitler insisted on the need for propaganda and a secret service as prerequisites of power in the modern state. 8 years before, Ronnie had sat in the old billiard hall in Eric Street, paying his boys 5 shillings a time for scraps of information. Now he had spies across London. In the East End, he had his following of barmen, taxi drivers, and small-time criminals wishing to keep well in with the Krays and sending in regular reports to Valence Road. In the West End, he could use Esmeralda's barn as a vantage point and paid in 50s and 100s for information he could use. The barn was the ideal place for rumors from the world around him. Anyone could be his spy. A businessman who had gambled too heavily and who knew of a city fraud. A male prostitute with incriminating letters from a prominent politician who should have had more sense than to write them in the first place. A thief who knew the time and place that a rival gang would rob a bank. Ronnie had a surprising memory for facts. His mind was full of the crime and scandal of the city. Sooner or later, it all came in useful. The information service was invaluable in other ways. In 1962 alone, at least 3 plans were made to murder the twins, one by a homemade bomb planted in their favorite pub, another by poison, and a third by 3 Corsican gunmen hired by a West End club owner with a grudge. The twins got wind of each attempt well in advance. The bomb, neatly diffused, was delivered back to the man who ordered it. The intending poisoner had his jaw broken in a club in Old Compton Street. 3 slightly worried Corsicans were met at Heathrow Airport by a reception committee, who sent them straight home on the next flight to Paris. With gangsters, as with politicians, what they do counts far less than what they are thought to do. The twins had the politicians' rare asset of endless credibility. People would always think the worst of them. Ronnie exploited this, using his followers and anyone he met to spread the wildest rumors of the twins' power. He loved to lard his conversation with hints of depravity and unspeakable wickedness, insinuating that the twins were behind every racket and maiming. It was even suggested that they killed for fun. Every society seems to need a bogeyman. Ronnie began to play the part, living for the hush that fell across a room when he entered, the glances from other tables when he was at dinner, the tension in a bar until he left. Vanity apart, this notoriety was good for business. The twins' name for evil placed them above all competitors. Nobody wished to fight with a legend. In the first week of March 1962, the East End had its own royal film premiere, Sparrows Can't Sing, a sentimental Cockney comedy of errors with Barbara Windsor. The East End's blonde bombshell opened at the Empire Cinema in Bow Road before the Snowdens and a society audience. It was a gala night for Stepney. When the film ended and the royal couple drove off along Commercial Road in their Rolls, the film cast and their friends went to a celebration party at the new club opposite. It was called the Kentucky. Waiting to meet them were its young proprietors, immaculate in evening dress, the Kray twins. The Kentucky was their latest venture, a plushier version of the Double R, designed to bring a smarter clientele to the East End. They had seen the publicity value of the premiere and arranged the grandest Cockney party of the year. Queenie Watts was there to sing, Lord Effingham to mingle with the guests. There was all the brown ale anyone could drink. Dancing went on till 3 a.m. The celebrities and the earlier presence of royalty made the occasion ideal for the twins, who were attempting to present themselves now as local figures of success. Prestige had begun to matter. So had their local charities. It would be wrong to be too cynical about the twins' philanthropy. They certainly enjoyed giving money away. But it is interesting that whenever they did give to charity, none of the local papers missed it. Back in July 1961, they had been photographed beaming beside the mayor of Bethnal Green, Councillor Hare, at the St. Matthew's Youth Club dance in aid of the organ fund. Since then, their life as Cockney worthies had been flourishing. Councillor Hare launched his Old Folks Appeal. One of the first to make a donation, a gleaming television set, was local businessman Reginald Kray. So it went on. Boys' clubs, cancer funds, hospitals, and old people's homes never appealed in vain. This was becoming a key part of the twins' publicity, something to counterbalance all the tales of terror that were spread. Besides, the charities appeared to be a way of widening their circle of acquaintances. When the Repton Amateur Boxing Club put on a special show that November, local businessman Ronald Kray donated all the trophies. The East London Advertiser ran a half-page tribute to the generosity of the twins, complete with a photograph of Ronnie Kray with Billy Walker, the famous boxer, and the news that Ronnie had bought £220 worth of tickets. His guests included Joan Littlewood, Barbara Windsor, Victor Spinetti, and Terry Spinks. According to the paper, he had also invited Charlie Smirk, the jockey and actor Sir John Gielgud. This expansion of their public image brought the twins closer to each other. To all outsiders, they were the twins. Now, firmly cemented in their double act by growing notoriety, fame, income, and self-respect seemed to depend on their togetherness. Reggie was still the businessman. Each minute of his day seemed to be filled with people to see, details to take care of. But it was Ronnie who was always there to force the pace. Ronnie who was unpredictable. He had the drive, the presence, and the big ideas. Reggie was the one who usually toned down the violence and tried to prevent Ronnie's excesses getting out of hand. Ronnie might dominate, but Reggie felt that only he knew Ronnie well enough to hold him back. That autumn, they were together more than usual. There were fewer weekends away for Reggie, fewer nights out with Francis. The twins even dressed alike again, with identical gold jewelry, black gleaming shoes and tightly knotted ties. The light-heartedness of those first few months after his return from prison seemed over. Just before Christmas, Reggie and Francis had their biggest fallout. She objected to the way Ronnie and his friends seemed to be taking over all their private life. He said her parents were trying to put her against him. At one point he was in tears, but finally agreed it would be best for them to see less of each other for a while. Thank you very much for watching. That brings this episode to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one.
for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.